Hey guys, tonight we step gently into the earliest garden, a place not only of beauty but of divine rhythm, where the trees swayed with a kind of wisdom and every leaf whispered the secrets of God's intent. You're not just entering Eden, you're breathing it in. The air is soft with purpose, the soil still warm from his shaping hands. Somewhere beyond the fig trees, a river murmurs through gold-dusted stones, and you feel it, that sacred stillness before the story begins. You probably won't survive this, unless you've got wings or a direct line to the Almighty. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The garden is alive, but it's not loud. You walk barefoot across soft moss, and there's no crunch of leaves, no clatter of branches. Everything yields gently under your feet. The sky above doesn't roar, it glows. A pearlescent blue brushed faintly with pinks and honey-colored light, as if dawn and dusk decided to embrace each other. This is before shame, before division, before names were weaponized. And the presence of God isn't hidden in a cloud or fire, it moves with the breeze. You don't hear him coming because he was already here. The rustle in the trees isn't wind, it's breath. His breath, and it moves through you. You crouch near a tree, not the tree, but another one dripping with slow sweating fruit. When you touch the bark, it's warm, the kind of warmth that feels like a hand already waiting for yours. And the fruit, you don't pick it, you wait. Because here, even hunger is patient. This is Eden, but it's not just a place, it's a rhythm, and the deeper secret, you were never meant to leave it. But listen, there's a murmur underneath the garden's hum. It's not Eve, not Adam, it's creation itself whispering back to the Creator. Before language, there was a sound, a soft vibration of unity. Some theologians suggest this may be what John meant by the word, a frequency, not just a phrase, and you're tuning in. Step closer. The tree of life pulses gently at the garden center. You don't see it yet, but you feel it. Your spine responds, your spirit aligns. Even your breath slows to match its rhythm. It's said in some old Hebrew traditions that the tree of life bore not one fruit, but many 12, even each offering a different kind of knowing. Imagine that, tasting patience, biting into understanding, savoring peace until it becomes part of your blood. But you're still walking. You pass a lion that yawns uninterested in prey. A lamb curls beside it, snoring softly. This isn't poetic imagery, it's real. And not even unusual here. Now something curious. Look just to your left, yes, behind that translucent tree. You notice something odd. A shimmer in the air like heat haze but cool to the touch. Some believe Eden wasn't fully on Earth. Some believe it was layered. A thin place, a realm brushing ours. You're standing where dimensions kiss. And here's a whisper for you, one not found in most Sunday school retellings. Eden may not have been lost, just hidden. Veiled from sight, not erased. Some mystics argue it still lingers dormant, waiting for stillness to draw it near again. You're not far. As you step beside a pond, the water reflects your face, but younger. Not physically, but soul younger. You remember something your body forgot. That sense of walking with purpose, but no pressure. No deadlines in paradise. Then you hear it, a laugh, gentle, echoing like wind through crystal. It's not Adam, not Eve, it's God, laughing. And not at sin or failure or cosmic justice, just delight. That's the part many forget. He didn't just create you, he enjoys you. Every blink, every stretch, every quiet choice to rest instead of react. Even now he watches you walking Eden's path in this moment of imagination. And he is pleased. And yet something tugs at your attention. A gentle sadness, not yours, not entirely. It's as if the garden knows what's coming. A leaf falls not because it's autumn, but because even paradise understands letting go. This is where it begins, not just the story of man, but the silence before the storm. The garden hums, but there's a tremor in the stillness. And you know somewhere something is watching from the shadows of free will. You kneel by a stream and close your eyes. The water keeps speaking in trickles and gentle bubbles. The grass cradles your knees. and from somewhere deeper than sound, you hear you were always meant to return. And you smile, because even though Eden fades behind you, its rhythm has already settled into your heartbeat. The real miracle isn't that paradise was made, but that even now in your weary stillness, you can still feel it waiting. And you carry it with you. The garden fades, but not like a dream, you don't forget it. It lingers in your chest like a fragrance you can't name. As you walk onward, the air thickens just slightly. The trees are taller now, wilder, and something distant rumbles, not thunder, but the breath of something waiting. You find yourself beside a man building something enormous out of wood. The planks are rough, not yet smoothed, the nails hand-forged. It's Noah, and he's quiet tonight. He doesn't speak, not to you, not even to the sky. And that's the part most people miss. God's instructions didn't come in a dramatic boom, not always. Sometimes they came between the thunder, not during it. Noah didn't hear God shouting. He heard him pausing. A divine rhythm again like Eden, but this time tinged with tension. You sit on a stone and just listen. All around you, life continues like nothing strange is happening. Children play, birds call, the sky is still blue, but Noah is building a boat on dry land and everyone else thinks he's lost it. Now tilt your head. There, did you hear it? A soft, low tone. Not quite voice, not quite wind. It weaves between the trees, between Noah's hammer strikes, and curls into your ears like a forgotten melody. Some theologians believe God's instructions to Noah weren't just words, but impressions, whispered patterns pressed into the heart. Less like, build this many cubits long, and more like, this is how you love a world that won't listen. Noah stops for a moment and looks at you, not with confusion, but with knowing. He nods, sweat running down his face, and turns back to the wood. The miracle isn't that he built an ark. It's that he obeyed when the sky was clear and the critics were loud. And the sky is still clear. That's the unsettling part. The clouds haven't gathered yet. The breeze is soft. No signs, no omens. Just a man building in the hush before the storm. The silence in this case is sacred. You stand and approach the half-formed ark. The wood smells of sap and soil. There's an ache in it, like it knows what's coming. Your fingers brush against the grain and you feel it, God's patience carved into the surface. It's not just a boat. It's a cradle for creation. Some apocryphal texts even suggest the ark sang, not loudly, not musically, but that it resonated with a hum like the vibration of obedience. You press your ear to the plank, and for just a second, you hear something deep, like the breath of animals not yet born. But now something strange happens. Time folds just briefly. The sky ripples and you're not by the ark anymore. You're inside a house, a small one, quiet, and an old woman is weaving. She hums a tune that sounds like the one you heard near the ark. Different place, same rhythm. The woman is Methuselah's daughter. Not named in scripture, but some traditions hold that she lived long enough to see both Eden's stories fade and the ark rise. She hums the memory of a world before noise. You sit near her feet, and though she says nothing to you, you feel taught like the air itself is giving you instruction. And then you're back by the ark. Noah hasn't moved. The animals aren't here yet. The rain hasn't come. But the miracle already has. The divine voice has spoken, and someone actually listened. There's something comforting in that, isn't there? That even if the world doesn't understand your obedience, God does. That peace comes not from results, but from response. Now walk a bit farther beyond the boat where the ground begins to slope downward. You find a shallow pool, rainwater from an earlier time. Dip your fingers in. It's cold, not unpleasant, the kind of cold that brings clarity. And in that water you see flashes, not just of Noah, but of others. Floods in different stories, cleansings, mikveh rituals, baptisms not yet imagined. Water that erases, yes, but also water that reveals. You look up and realize the sky is still clear. And that's the secret here. The miracle wasn't just that God warned Noah. It's that he warned him gently. Before the roar, before the panic. In stillness, in whispers. Because that's how he speaks to the ones who are listening. And you're learning to listen too. And here's a lesser-known curiosity. Some believe the gopher wood used for the ark was symbolic. That the word itself is a cipher, a hidden message. One theory even suggests it translates to wood of covering. Think about that, not just a building material, but an emblem of mercy, of protection before judgment. Noah walks past you now, carrying a heavy beam on his shoulders. And for a flicker of a second, you see a shadow overlay another man in another time carrying another beam. The future is whispering into the past. You hear birds again, but not many, not yet. The air stills. You breathe in slowly, the scent of fresh wood, the hush of obedience, and you realize this is not the calm before the storm. It is the calm of trust. You close your eyes, and in that calm, you hear one more thing, a promise. Not shouted, not written in thunder, just a soft voice inside you saying, build even when no one believes. I am with you in the silence. And the silence answers back, Amen. The air shifts again. You're not near the ark anymore. Your feet press into dry, cracked earth. Dust rises gently around your ankles, swirling with a strange kind of intention. The sky above you is heavy with gold, a setting sun that refuses to disappear, as if even light itself is pausing to watch what happens next. Ahead, a tent stands alone. Not lavish, not tall, but open like a question. The kind of tent that says we are not done traveling. And beside it, Abraham. He doesn't look startled to see you. In fact, he doesn't look at you at all. He's focused on the horizon, on something beyond what you can see. Then you feel them. Not footsteps, not sound. Just a presence. 3 figures approach, but they don't disturb the dust. The ground seems to welcome them, as if it's been waiting for this exact moment, this exact trio. You remember the story 3 visitors to Abraham sent by God, but what most don't realize is this: they waited. They didn't rush, they didn't interrupt. They stood there, in the heat, in the open, in silence. You move closer to them and feel it, a strange stillness wrapped in power. The kind of quiet that hums with authority, like lightning but slowed down. You glance toward Abraham again, and he finally moves. Not toward them, toward the tent. He's preparing food. Generous, lavish, urgent, but still careful. Here's something hidden. Some believe these were angels. Others believe one of them was God himself in human form, what theologians call a theophany. A rare moment when the divine takes shape, not with wings or trumpets, but with dusty feet and kind eyes. You sit just outside the circle. They eat. And it's not just a meal, it's a pause, a divine intermission. Heaven brushing earth not with spectacle, but with silence and shared bread. Abraham's wife Sarah is inside the tent. You know this part. She hears laughter spoken over her about the child she will bear in her old age, and she laughs too, softly, in disbelief. But here's the detail most forget: she laughs inside herself. Not aloud, just a breath of amusement buried in disbelief. And yet, the visitor hears it. This isn't about omniscience, it's about intimacy, about a God who listens not just to words but to inner sighs, to heart murmurs. The dust settles around your legs as you sit quietly, taking it all in. These figures, these quiet ones, they finish eating. And then something remarkable happens. They don't rush off, they linger, almost like they're waiting for Abraham to speak, or for you to understand. And you feel it. The tension of the in-between, the moment before movement, the quiet that comes not from absence, but from intention. One of them turns and looks directly at you, not past you, not through you, at you. And without moving their mouth, you feel the words press into your mind. Do not mistake quiet for disinterest. We dwell in the pause. You exhale. There's another whisper from tradition, a lesser-known midrash, saying that before these angels visited Abraham, they waited nearby in the dust for 3 days, waiting until he had healed from his circumcision, not rushing the divine timeline, honoring the human one. Even angels wait. Even miracles pause. Now you see Sarah step outside the tent, her eyes soft with wonder. She doesn't speak either. She looks at the ground, almost embarrassed by her earlier disbelief. But something in her posture has changed. The joke has become a promise. The laughter now a lullaby waiting to happen. The 3 figures rise. Their shadows stretch long and strange, like the ground itself is reluctant to let them go. As they begin to leave, one pauses. The earth tightens. The silence becomes sharp. Shall we tell Abraham what we are about to do? It's a question, but also a threshold. They speak of Sodom, of judgment. But what you hear underneath is this: God confides in his friends. Even when the topic is heavy, even when the silence breaks. Some believe that what made Abraham special wasn't his obedience, it was his intimacy. His willingness to stand near God, to listen longer than most, and to ask bold questions inside that holy quiet. You feel your spirit leaning forward, because that's the pattern unfolding. God shows up, but not in ways most expect. Not in lightning bolts, not in firestorms, but in tired travelers, in dusty feet, in meals offered without conditions. The miracle isn't the prophecy, it's the presence. The quiet, staying kind. Now the figures are gone. The dust dances again, lighter this time, like it's been blessed. You walk slowly toward the edge of the camp where the light fades and the hills dip into shadow. The wind returns cooler now, brushing against your cheeks like a whisper from something ancient. You feel watched, but not in fear, in care. And here's a theological uncertainty worth holding gently. Were those three visitors mere angels, or were they more? Could it be that the Trinity brushed Earth long before Bethlehem? Some early Christian thinkers wondered, was this Abraham's glimpse of God's fullness before it ever had a name? You won't find a definitive answer, but maybe you don't need one. You carry the stillness forward like dust on your cloak, like memory in your lungs. And somewhere inside you, laughter begins to bloom, not loud, not mocking, just soft, just believing. Because you were here when heaven waited in the dust. The warmth of Sarah's laughter trails behind you as you walk gentle and faint, like a melody remembered in a dream. The path bends now, not sharply, but slowly, like the turning of a page, and you find yourself in the soft quiet of a night long past. There is no city in sight, no crowd, just tense stars and a fire that hums rather than crackles. You step into a circle of light. It flickers golden across weathered fabric and old hands. And in the shadows of the tent, you see her, Sarah, again, but younger now, or rather glowing with a kind of time-defying awe. She's alone for a moment, sitting cross-legged, rubbing her palms along her belly. There is nothing yet to show, but something has taken root. The promise is real now, and so is the waiting. You sit beside her tent, not disturbing the moment, just listening. The night wind smells like olives and distant rain. Sheep stir somewhere nearby, but the true movement is inside that tent, in the space between heartbeat and breath. Here's the miracle most missed: the child hasn't been born yet, but the transformation already has. Sarah, once bitter and barren in spirit, now breathes differently. She is letting herself believe, and that is the holiest work of all. Now think on this. How often does God deliver a promise before the visible result? How often does the laughter come not as reaction, but as surrender? There's a beautiful curiosity tucked into the text. When Sarah laughed in disbelief, the Hebrew word used is tsachak. But when her child is finally born, they name him Isaac, which comes from that same root. So the laughter that once doubted becomes the name of the promise fulfilled. Only God could do that, take the sound of disbelief and weave it into joy. But here's a question scholars still debate: did Sarah's laughter offend God, or was it part of the plan? Some say her doubt was a flaw, others say it was honest, and that God's true desire was never blind faith, but authentic, trembling trust. You lean back on your elbows, now gazing up at the stars, and suddenly you see them the way Abraham did, uncountable. Not just in number, but in invitation. Each star seems to say, there is more. Keep looking. You hear Sarah singing softly, a lullaby, a hymn. You're not sure, it has no words, only tone, but it wraps around your ears like velvet. You could fall asleep to this. Maybe you already are. A shepherd walks by in the distance. He nods, then continues, never disturbing the song. You rise and walk further past the edge of the camp, where shrubs grow low and wild and the ground crunches lightly underfoot. Then you see it. A quiet hill, not grand, but set apart. And standing at its peak is Abraham, alone, looking upward. You pause at the bottom, giving him space. He doesn't see you, but you know what this is. It's a moment before the next moment, the time between belief and proof. And Abraham is simply being in it. This is something modern minds often miss. That God's presence doesn't always arrive with a task. Sometimes it's just an invitation to be still while being watched over. You sit on a rock, and the breeze rises slightly cooler now. It brushes against your arms like the hem of a robe. And here's another whisper from the old texts. Some ancient commentaries say that Sarah's tent remained open on all sides, symbolizing generosity. That once the promise entered her body, her spirit opened too. So perhaps that's part of the transformation. Not just receiving a miracle, but becoming the kind of person who lives like it's already here. You close your eyes and you're suddenly inside her tent just for a breath. The fabric moves gently in the wind. The light flickers low. You see her hand resting on her chest just below her collarbone, and you realize she's not worried anymore. Not because she knows, but because she believes. The child hasn't kicked yet. The world hasn't changed, but she has. You feel that now in your own bones, the subtle shift of soul when fear softens, when you no longer demand evidence but walk forward anyway. And for a moment you wonder, what if that's the deeper miracle? Not the baby, not the birth, but the laughter. The laughter that now lives in her bones and strangely in yours too. You stand and walk slowly away from the tent. The night deepens, stars glow brighter, and somewhere in the hills an owl calls, once low and calm. You remember the old phrase she laughed to herself, but it no longer sounds like disbelief. It sounds like music before it finds a melody, like a promise humming softly in the dark. And in the hush that follows, you hear a voice inside your chest, not loud, not even verbal, just a warmth that says, even what you thought was too late isn't. You smile gently and walk on. The hills roll gently beneath your steps, and the stars stretch wider than before. There's something ancient in the air now, older than Abraham, older than the garden. It presses softly against your skin like the hush before snow, though no snow falls here, only silence. Ahead lies a man curled in the dark. His head rests on a stone, rough and cold. His eyes twitch beneath closed lids. He's dreaming. You recognize him, Jacob. Not yet Israel. Not yet father of 12 tribes. Just a man on the run, tired from family wounds and the weight of deception. The sky above him swirls with stars, but he sleeps low, grounded in consequence. You crouch nearby, careful not to stir the moment. Then it begins. A ladder, but not like any ladder you've seen. This one stretches from the dirt beside Jacob to somewhere above starlight. It glows faintly like moonlight on water, and angels move along it, up and down, not in haste, but with deep, unhurried purpose. Here's the strange part. Jacob doesn't climb. He watches. He lies still. And the ladder hums quietly beside him. The vision is powerful, but quiet, always quiet. No trumpet, no thunder, no voice booming from the sky. Just presence, just movement. Some rabbis say this moment was less about the ladder and more about location, that Jacob unknowingly slept at the gateway of heaven, a thin place, a seam in the fabric between realms, a stairwell for spirits. But notice he didn't go up. You look at the ladder again and you begin to wonder, what if it's not for climbing? What if it's a signal? A divine reassurance that the traffic between heaven and earth never stopped. Maybe the miracle isn't access. Maybe it's awareness. You sit beside Jacob, the stone pressing into your legs. The ground beneath you feels charged, as if every grain of sand is listening. And as the angels ascend and descend, you begin to sense something more. They aren't carrying messages to heaven. They're bringing something down. Peace, mercy, instruction. Some scholars debate the meaning of the ladder. Is it symbolic of prayer? A representation of divine covenant? Or something else entirely? Jesus himself once told a crowd they would see angels ascending and descending on the Son of Man as if he were the new ladder. The bridge, a thread to keep. Jacob stirs slightly in his sleep. You can almost hear his dream breath, soft and steady, mixing with the breeze. And now, a quieter detail often missed. God speaks to him in this dream, but not with correction. No lecture, no rebuke, just promise. I am with you. I will watch over you. I will not leave you. It's stunning, really. Jacob is fleeing after tricking his brother. He's a fugitive, a deceiver, and yet God doesn't use this moment to chastise, but to comfort. You lie back beside him, feel the cool of the stone, let your eyes trace the edges of the ladder, and you wonder how many times you've passed a sacred place without noticing. How many dreams have climbed quietly beside your head while you slept, never demanding attention. Jacob wakes. He blinks, confused, his breath short. Then his eyes widen. He looks around slowly. This is none other than the house of God, he whispers, and I didn't even know it. You smile because that's the heart of it. You've been there too, standing in the middle of a miracle unaware, until hindsight clears your vision. Jacob takes the stone, his makeshift pillow, and sets it upright. He pours oil over it. An altar born from a rock that held his dreams. And here's a lesser-known curiosity, that stone. Some traditions say it was later carried centuries down the line and used as a cornerstone in the temple. Others say it became known as the Stone of Destiny, a single silent witness to the promises of God. You reach out and touch it. It's cool again, solid. And in that moment you remember something else. Jacob will walk many more miles. He'll wrestle angels. He'll limp from divine struggle. But this dream, this quiet vision will remain a turning point, a hinge, a silent miracle resting in a field. Now look to the horizon. Morning is near. The stars fade slowly, one by one, as if bowing out from a performance. Jacob is already moving, packing, stepping forward. The ladder fades from sight, but not from memory. And you rise too, walking beside the path where the angels moved. Not upward, not downward, just near. Because now you know there is a ladder resting quietly in the soul of the world. And you, whether you climb it or not, are always near its base. You walk the long road with Jacob still lingering in your memory, the quiet vision of the ladder pulsing gently in your chest, like a heartbeat too holy to forget. But now the air changes. It thickens, more weight than wind. The ground beneath your feet darkens stone, giving way to dry dust and jagged rock. And then you hear it. Nothing. A silence so deep it hums like the echo of something vast and hollow. You're in a pit. Not metaphorically, though, that will come, but a real one. Dry walls of earth rise around you, steep and unforgiving. And in the center of it lies Joseph. Younger than you remember him from later stories. His robe, once bright with favor, is torn, dirty, half buried in dust. His eyes are open, but he doesn't cry. That's what surprises you most. No panic, no shouting, just a slow, calm blinking. A boy who has just been thrown into the earth by his own brothers and says nothing. You sit beside him even if the dust stains your clothes. It feels right, sacred even. Because here's the secret, this is where Joseph truly begins. Not in Pharaoh's court, not in Egypt, not in his dreams. Here, in this pit, in this silence. Many rush past this moment in the story, eager for the redemption arc. But what if this, the pit, is the miracle? What if being buried alive in betrayal is where something begins to live? You glance at Joseph again. His breathing is shallow but steady. He's thinking, and you start to realize so are you. The silence here isn't empty, it's crowded. Crowded with questions. Why did they hate me? What did I do wrong? Where is God now? But the answers don't come as thunder or lightning. They come as stillness. And in that stillness, Joseph does something remarkable. He waits. That's the miracle most miss. Not just that he was saved, but that he stayed still long enough to be lifted out. Some traditions say Joseph was only 17 when this happened, a teenager hated for dreaming too brightly. And while scholars agree his robe symbolized favoritism, others wonder, was it also a mark of calling, a sign that he was already set apart for more? You sit with that idea. Let it settle into your thoughts like silt into water. Now look at the sky above. It's so far up, a single square of light. But it's enough. It shines onto Joseph's face, and for a moment he closes his eyes, not to sleep, but to listen. And you wonder, is God speaking now? Not in language maybe, but in presence. There's a lesser-known theory among some ancient Jewish commentaries that in the pit, Joseph didn't just survive. He heard the voice of God clearly for the first time. That his later ability to interpret dreams wasn't born in luxury, but in this still buried moment. Can you imagine that? God not shouting down from heaven, but sitting beside you in the dirt saying nothing, just being with you. You place your hand on the ground. It vibrates softly as if remembering something old and deep. Like the earth itself is repeating a prayer. And here's something worth pondering. Some scholars note that Joseph never blames his brothers directly later in life. Not in rage, not with bitterness. It's almost as if this pit taught him that vengeance was unnecessary, that knowing God was still with him was enough. He rolls slightly now, adjusting his posture, his robe falling off his shoulder. You see his back, no visible wounds, but the marks are there, written in silence. The miracle is not that the pit disappeared. The miracle is that he didn't let it define him. You look up again. The opening seems brighter now, wider maybe. Or maybe you've just adjusted to the darkness. A rope lowers. Rough, frayed. Joseph blinks, and for the first time since you arrived, he moves with purpose. He rises, not rushed, not triumphant, just steady. As if he's already seen the next 20 years ahead and knows this is only the prologue. He climbs, one step, then another. And you follow him upward, not because you're being rescued, but because you're remembering even the pit holds purpose. Even silence contains instruction. Even betrayal bends toward blessing in the hands of the divine. As you crest the edge, the wind brushes your face again. Brighter here, warmer. Joseph is already being led away toward chains, toward Egypt, toward a life he never asked for. But behind him, the pit remains. Quiet, sacred, not cursed. You turn back for one last glance, and the dust swirls gently across the bottom. And then, like a whisper only for you, the earth says, "Some of God's greatest conversations happen underground." You nod. And keep walking. The road turns again, though you don't feel your feet moving. It's more like the world itself has pivoted around you. The wind shifts. The sun is higher now, but not harsh, just steady, like a lamp placed over a desk where something sacred is being written. You find yourself in a wide, empty space. Sand curls along the edges. Dry shrubs sway slowly. And in the middle of it all is a man seated on a rock, staring into nothing. It's Moses. But not the Moses you know yet. No tablets, no plagues, no parted seas. This Moses is hidden, aged by time and silence. He's alone in the desert Midian, they call it. But it feels more like a waiting room between two worlds. The place between the palace and the calling. You watch him from a short distance. He's tending sheep, but his movements are mechanical, thoughtless. The kind of routine that wears a man down instead of building him up. And this is where it happens. The hidden years. Everyone talks about the burning bush. Few talk about the decades that led to it. Decades where Moses was invisible, discarded. Not Hebrew enough for slaves, not Egyptian enough for royalty. A man with a history, but no home. You sit on a nearby stone. It's warm, sun-soaked, but the breeze carries a kind of loneliness. Not despair, but the echo of a question never quite answered. What do you do when the calling doesn't come? You watch Moses gently lift a lamb out of a thorn bush. He doesn't yell, doesn't scold, just loosens the branches one by one, patient and deliberate. Here's the quiet miracle God was watching that. Some Jewish traditions suggest that exact moment the care for a single lost lamb is what qualified Moses for divine purpose. Not his education, not his courage, but his mercy and silence. You lean into the wind. It carries sand across your skin like a soft exfoliation of pride. You can almost hear the thought pressing into Moses' mind. Is this it? Is this my life now? And still he serves. He walks, feeds, sleeps, repeats, for 40 years. A lesser-known curiosity, Moses was around 80 when the burning bush called his name. That means the vast majority of his adult life was spent waiting in obscurity, and God let it be so. You walk with him a while. He doesn't notice you, but his posture tells the story. Shoulders not quite slumped, but settled. Feet worn, but steady. A man who has learned not to demand explanations. And that's the heart of it. Some scholars argue that this long silence, this desert, is not punishment, but preparation. A slow emptying of ego, a making of space for the voice of God. Then suddenly the wind shifts. Sharper now. You feel it before you see it. A bush ahead begins to flicker, but it's not burning. Not really. The flame curls around the branches but doesn't consume. It dances elegant and still, like a thought that won't leave, a whisper refusing to fade. Moses turns. He steps closer. You follow. The air is heavy now, but not oppressive, more like dense with purpose. And then you hear it, the voice. But not loud, not theatrical, just direct. Moses, Moses. The name said twice. In Hebrew, repetition like that isn't noise, it's intimacy. You feel it too deep in your ribs, as if someone just whispered your name from inside your chest. Moses answers simply, "Here I am." And there it is. Not a resume, not a defense. Just presence. Here I am. You close your eyes. And in that space between silence and calling, you remember something you've forgotten. God's most world-shaking instructions are usually delivered in solitude. Now a theological tension floats to the surface. Some scholars question why God waited so long. Why didn't he call Moses sooner? But others argue he did, just not with words. The desert itself was the calling. The waiting was the shaping. And maybe you're in one too. You open your eyes. The fire flickers beside you, warm but not scalding. Moses takes off his sandals. You follow. Not out of imitation, but reverence. Because now you see it. Even in the wilderness of delay, the presence burns. Even in obscurity, heaven watches. Even in the hidden years, God is speaking, softly, but unmistakably. The flame dances still, not with frenzy, but with knowing. You and Moses stand in silence as the bush glows, not with destruction, but with invitation. The fire moves like thought, like breath. A rhythm of warmth that doesn't burn. A flicker of eternity clothed in shrubbery. And now Moses hears more. A voice gentle but firm rolls from the flame, not thunderous, not booming, just enough to shake the dust from the deepest part of your soul. Take off your sandals, for the place where you stand is holy ground. The earth under your feet shifts not physically but spiritually. You feel it, the weight, the gravity of that word holy. Not because the ground has changed, but because you have. The desert hasn't vanished. The thorns haven't turned into roses. But the presence of God has revealed the truth that was there all along. Any ground becomes sacred when heaven speaks. You look at Moses again. His face is still caught between awe and fear. The years in Midian are written in his wrinkles and the way his hands twitch slightly at the name he's hearing now. I am. A name with no boundaries, no edges, just being itself breathing out of a bush. You hear it too, not in your ears, but in your chest. I am. Not I was or I might be. Just now. Just here. Unfolding inside you like light through stained glass. And now a curious moment. Moses dares to speak. He asks God a question, not with arrogance but hesitation. Who am I that I should go? And here is the miracle. God doesn't answer that question with a list of Moses' strengths. He doesn't flatter. He simply says, I will be with you. Not you're ready. Not you're strong. Just I'm going with you. You take a breath. Because maybe that's all any of us really need. Now look closely. The fire shifts slightly. You can almost see shapes within it, movements of time. Egypt, Pharaoh, plagues, parting waters. But none of that has happened yet. And still the bush burns on. Some theologians say this moment is the pivot of biblical history. That everything after this, the law, the Exodus, the covenant, hinges on this fire. But here's what most don't see. The bush is not the miracle. The fire is not the point. The miracle is that Moses turned aside to look. The Bible says it clearly: when the Lord saw that he turned aside to look, God called to him, which means the voice didn't speak until Moses noticed. You blink. How many burning bushes have you passed? How many sacred invitations have waited patient and flickering for your pause? It's humbling, but it's also hope, because heaven doesn't shout. It waits. And the bush burns still. You sit on the earth now, sandals off the grit of the ground, reminding you that faith isn't clean or polished. It's dusty. It's raw. It often grows in deserts. There's a tradition, quiet, not widely taught, that the fire in the bush was the same fire later seen in the pillar that led Israel, the same fire at Sinai, the same fire of Pentecost, the same presence, unchanging, but never in a rush. A wind stirs now. You look up. The bush flickers but does not fade. And now God speaks again. This time he names a mission. Free the people. Go back. Face Pharaoh. You can feel Moses' body tense. He is not thrilled. He is not leaping with excitement. He is scared. Doubt floods him. He stumbles over excuses. What if they don't believe me? I'm not good with words. You smile a little because it's familiar. How often do we resist the divine by pointing to our weaknesses? But again, God doesn't respond with corrections. He just reminds Moses, I made your mouth. And that's the key. God doesn't need your perfection. Just your turning. Just your willingness to look again, to pause, to step closer when others walk past. You touch the edge of the flame, not with your hand, but with your spirit. It warms you, clears you, softens something you didn't know had hardened. Then you rise, not to walk away, but to carry the flame with you. It does not extinguish. It goes with you quietly into every place you've ever feared, and you realize the fire that did not consume the bush will not consume you. The fire still dances behind your eyelids as you walk. It leaves no scar, only clarity. Every step now feels different, less hurried, more intentional, as if the silence itself has become a kind of companion. The desert rolls out before you, but you're no longer alone. Behind you, the past is still burning quietly. Ahead of you, a nation waits to be fed, and you find yourself in a camp beneath a pale morning sky, surrounded by tents and slow footsteps. The people stir, not with energy but hunger. They've crossed the sea. They've sung their victory. But now the echo of the song is gone, and all that's left is stomachs rumbling in unison. Then it happens. The dew lifts, and there on the ground something glows faintly. You kneel beside it. It looks like frost, thin, white, fragile. You reach down and gather a small amount in your fingers. It dissolves almost instantly, soft as air, sweet as memory. Manna, bread from heaven. But here's the hidden detail: it melts with the sun. If you wait too long, it vanishes. It doesn't shout, doesn't last. You must rise to receive it. You look around. Others are gathering it too, some slow, some scooping quickly. But the miracle isn't in the volume, it's in the rhythm. One day at a time, no more than needed, no less than given. God is teaching something here, not just provision, but timing. And you begin to understand peace doesn't come from having more. It comes from trusting that tomorrow will also bring what you need. You sit back watching a child scoop manna into a clay bowl. His smile is simple. He doesn't ask how it got there. He doesn't worry about next week. He just gathers. There's a theological nuance buried in this part of the story. Some argue manna was a physical manifestation of God's word, a metaphor made edible. Others believe it was a substance beyond earthly classification designed to bypass the laws of nature entirely. But either way, it was daily, ephemeral, a whisper made visible, and then gone again. Now look around the camp. Some are already anxious, trying to hoard, trying to save a little more for the next day, just in case. You know what happens next. It spoils. Worms. Rot. Because the point was never the food. It was the trust. You close your eyes, imagining your own soul open like a hand each morning. Ready. Empty. Expectant. Not demanding, just available. You hear a faint sound wind across tent cloth, the creak of leather. Somewhere a pot clinks. But mostly, silence. This is the first quiet miracle after escape. No thunder, no sea splitting in two, just flakes of grace on dusty ground. And here's a lesser-known curiosity in Hebrew. The word manna literally means, what is it? A question turned into sustenance. Think about that. God feeds his people not with certainty, but with mystery. You stand again. The sun climbs a little higher. You watch as the manna begins to disappear, slowly, softly, like a message that will only remain if you read it before it fades. Some early Christian writers likened manna to the grace given each morning in prayer, not all at once, not by storage, but renewed with the sunrise, not earned, just offered. You run your fingers through the ground where the manna was. Nothing now, just dry soil, and yet your heart feels full, because what you gathered wasn't just food. It was a reminder that God doesn't overwhelm. He provides gently. He doesn't flood your life with answers. He leaves enough for today, no more, no less. You begin to walk again, and the memory of that sweetness clings to your tongue. Behind you, the camp settles back into rhythm. Some complain, some forget, but just a few rise early every day just to be still enough to gather. You smile, because now you are one of them. Dust swirls in slow spirals behind you as you move beyond the camp. The sweetness of the manna lingers faintly, but now the air grows heavier, drier. There's tension in the wind, like something held its breath long ago and never exhaled. You come to a wall, but not just any wall. This one is thick, ancient, looming high above you, built stone by hands long forgotten, Jericho, and around it silence. You expect the sound of siege shouts commands the clang of armor, but no. What surrounds this wall is something far stranger. Stillness. A nation marches, but no one speaks, no one chants, no weapons clash. Just the soft shuffle of feet and the occasional creak of leather straps. You walk beside them, blending in. Step after step, the rhythm becomes hypnotic. They circle the wall, once, then they stop, and they go home. No battle cry, no attempt to scale or break. Just obedience tucked inside restraint. You lean against a tree and watch. This repeats the next day, and the next. 7 days of silence, of footsteps that feel more like prayer than protest. And here lies the real miracle. It's not in the walls falling. It's in the days before they do. Most miracles make noise when they arrive. This one builds in the quiet beforehand, like a storm waiting for permission to begin. There's a lesser-known layer to this event. Some believe the silence wasn't just obedience. It was strategy. Not military, but spiritual. By silencing their voices, the people gave space for God's voice to be heard in their hearts. Imagine that. A whole army walking in total quiet, not just outwardly, but inwardly, listening for a voice that wasn't giving orders, but offering peace. You sit now at the edge of the dusty road as the priests pass by. They carry the ark, not shouting, not pointing, just steady. And you notice something deeper. This isn't about walls. It's about what's behind them. For some, it's Jericho. For you, maybe something else: shame, fear, disappointment. God didn't just tell them to destroy a city. He invited them to face the things they could never conquer with noise. You rise again and follow the crowd. And on the 7th day, everything shifts. They march 7 times now. The silence stretches so tight it hums like a bowstring. Then, a sound. Not chaos, but clarity. The blast of a ram's horn, ancient and raw. And the voices, oh, the voices, they come not in confusion but as one. A shout not of power but of release. You feel it in your bones as the walls begin to crumble, not outward but inward. As if Jericho itself had been holding in a secret it could no longer keep. Dust fills the sky, and then stillness again. But it's different now. Not the tense stillness of waiting, but the restful hush that comes after obedience has run its course. You walk through the broken stones, careful not to disturb the quiet. Somewhere behind you, people rejoice. But you walk slowly, letting the miracle settle inside you. And here's a scriptural curiosity. The Ark of the Covenant led the march around Jericho. God's presence didn't wait on the outside, directing from afar. It circled the wall with the people. It walked in silence with them. It led the quiet revolution. So ask yourself, what wall in your life is only waiting for you to circle it quietly? To show up, walk, trust, not shout first, not fix, just walk. And wait, you sit on a fallen stone now, once part of a great wall, now reduced to quiet testimony. It does not mourn its fall. It only says God moves in stillness too. You breathe that in and move on. The rubble of Jericho fades behind you as the dust settles gently over time. You walk deeper into evening now, where the sky begins to dim like a veil being drawn slowly over the earth. The air carries that peculiar silence that always comes just before something sacred. You pass a small structure, weather-worn, humble. It's the tabernacle. And near it, curled up beside a golden lampstand, lies a boy. His name is Samuel. You step quietly, careful not to disturb the hush. The floor beneath you is stone smoothed by bare feet, and the glow of the lamp flickers on the walls like water light. He's asleep, a child serving in the temple before he even understands the voice he serves. And yet tonight it will happen. You settle nearby, leaning against a cool pillar. The scent of oil and old wood hangs in the air. It smells like time itself. And while everything appears still, there's a presence here invisible but immense. Then, a whisper. Samuel. The boy stirs. Not fully awake, just confused. He rises, runs to Eli, the old priest, but Eli shakes his head. I didn't call you. Samuel returns to bed. You smile softly, because you know this part. The whisper comes again. Samuel. He rises once more. Same confusion. Same answer. The miracle here isn't just in the call, it's in the repetition. God doesn't give up after the first miss. He waits. He tries again. A lesser-known commentary from ancient Jewish teaching suggests that God's voice in this moment didn't boom from heaven, it came from within the tabernacle itself. Close, local. As if God sat beside the child's bed and called softly, like a parent brushing hair from a brow. The third time, Samuel still doesn't recognize it. It's only after Eli finally understanding gives him the right words. Next time say, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." And that right there is the pivot. Because now Samuel doesn't just hear, he listens. You feel your own breath slow sinking with the rhythm of the oil lamp flickering near the ark. Then the whisper comes again. Samuel, Samuel. And this time the boy answers, "Speak, Lord." You can almost hear heaven pause, because now the conversation can begin. The hush grows deeper, like the entire tabernacle is leaning in. And the words spoken next aren't easy. They're weighty, a judgment against Eli's house, a truth hard to carry, especially for a child. But here lies the quieter miracle God entrusts it to him anyway. He chooses the softest vessel to deliver the heaviest word, and that's worth lingering on. God doesn't wait for Samuel to grow up to prove himself to gain credentials. He speaks now because he was listening. You glance toward the ark, the space where God dwells between cherubim. The room glows with soft divine energy, not dramatic, just present. A theological curiosity for you, this is the first time in Scripture God's voice returns in such intimacy after the chaos of Judges. The word had been rare, but now with a child it begins anew. Not with a prophet yelling in the streets, but with a boy waking up in the dark. You step closer to Samuel. He's still lying down, wide-eyed, quiet now, in reverence more than confusion. His small hands are still, his breathing steady. And maybe you begin to understand the voice of God isn't rare because he's silent. It's rare because few know how to be still enough to hear it. You sit beside him and wait, letting the silence become sacred, letting the hush become home. And in that silence, a new kind of peace falls over you, not empty, not passive, but alert, a calm that listens. You wonder now if God still speaks like this. If even now in your room, your rest, your drift towards sleep, a whisper might come, not to test you, but to invite you, to remind you that divine attention is not reserved for the strong or famous or loud. Sometimes it curls beside a child in the dark and speaks softly until they recognize the sound. You rest your hand over your heart and imagine it, your name, spoken gently, repeated without rush. He waits, so you whisper back, "Speak, Lord," and the silence answers, "I've been waiting for you to listen." The glow of the oil lamp fades behind you as Samuel's small breath settles back into the rhythm of sleep. You walk out into the night where the stars seem a little softer now, closer even as if heaven has leaned just slightly downward to listen. The air hums faintly, not with voices but with strings, gentle, slow, rising and falling like the tide. You follow the sound across a hill and find him, David. Still a boy though, there's something ancient in the way he moves. He sits beneath a fig tree, knees tucked, close, harp resting against his thigh. His fingers dance slowly across the strings, not performing, not rehearsing, just releasing. And you feel it at once. Peace. Not silence, but serenity. The kind that untangles something in your chest without asking for permission. David doesn't see you. His eyes are on the stars as if he's reading the Psalms before he's written them. You sit nearby and the music wraps around you like a blanket left out in the sun. This is no concert. This is prayer. You realize something beautiful. No one asked David to do this. He isn't being watched. He's not trying to impress. The sheep are nearby, some grazing lazily, others curled beside rocks. But his hands never stop. Here's the miracle if you're quiet enough to notice it. The king-to-be is singing to a God he knows personally, long before a throne or crown ever touches him. The harp whispers what words cannot. I'm still here, Lord. Even out here, even unnoticed. You close your eyes. And in the dark behind your eyelids, the music paints things. Green pastures, still waters. A valley, yes, but with a shepherd walking ahead. This is what shaped David, not battle, not fame, but worship in obscurity. A lesser-known curiosity in Jewish tradition, it's said that David composed many of his early psalms not with enemies in mind, but with sheep. That he tested melodies on animals first. If they settled, it was good. If they scattered, he rewrote. Imagine that. Learning how to calm the world with music before ever calming a soul with leadership. Now the breeze picks up and David plays a little louder, but never forcefully. His voice hums along, just syllables now. No lyrics yet. But you recognize the cadence of something ancient. Then he sings, softly, a line you know even if he doesn't yet. The Lord is my shepherd. You glance over, and for a second he looks right at you. Not startled, not surprised, as if he knew someone was listening. He nods slightly, keeps playing, and you wonder how many of your own quiet offerings have gone unseen. How many nights have you whispered prayers into pillows thinking no one heard? And yet maybe David teaches us this: when you sing, even in solitude, heaven listens. There's a small bag near him, inside a sling, stones, tools of survival. But tonight they rest, because the real weapon here isn't in the pouch, it's in the strings. Here's a tension theologians often note: David was chosen not for strength, but for heart. But heart in Hebrew isn't just emotion, it means will, courage, direction. It's who you are when no one's watching. And now watching him, you understand. His heart was tuned in these moments. Alone, unpraised, just him, his God, and the night. A sheep bleats softly in the distance. David shifts, calming it with a glance and a change in melody. The music shifts too. You feel it draw something out of you, a grief maybe, or a hope you forgot to carry. It rises not to overwhelm, but to remind you you're allowed to feel peace again. And maybe that's the quiet miracle tonight. That a boy's harp beneath a fig tree still reaches your ears centuries later across time and sorrow and silence. You lie back on the grass, the stars pulse like notes. David hums something new, and the spirit you can't see curls softly beside you, whispering, I make music out of your waiting. The wind carries that tune into your bones, and you rest. You awaken to wind, not wild, not cold, but sweeping softly across your face like breath exhaled from something older than the hills around you. The harp is gone now, its final notes lingering in your memory like distant incense. The air smells different, crisp, thinner. You're higher now, standing near a jagged edge of stone. A mountain, the kind where echoes seem too scared to shout. And ahead near the cliff's edge stands a man wrapped in a cloak, still as stone. It's Elijah, and he is waiting. You step softly over pebbled ground and feel the weight of silence all around you. But it's not empty, it's charged. Something is coming. But Elijah doesn't flinch. He stands with his back to you, facing the valley below, a man who's seen miracles outrun kings, called down fire, and still somehow finds himself waiting for a voice that no one else can hear. This is Mount Horeb, and Elijah is not here for spectacle. He's here for a whisper. The sky above shifts suddenly, deep clouds gather, twisting into a dark crown. Then, a wind, violent, ripping, stones torn loose, dust blinds your eyes. But Elijah doesn't move. Because the Lord is not in the wind, then comes the earthquake. The ground convulses beneath you, sharp and shaking. Cracks appear in the rocks. A hawk takes flight from the cliffs in terrified spirals. But Elijah doesn't move, because the Lord is not in the earthquake. Then, fire, not the soft flame of the bush. No. This fire rages, hissing through the sky like an open wound. But Elijah still doesn't move, because the Lord is not in the fire. And then, stillness. No sound. No movement. Not even breath. And in that space, barely more than a feeling. A whisper. No words. Just presence. And Elijah finally moves. He wraps his cloak around his face, because he knows this is the voice of God. Not in fury, not in spectacle, but in stillness. You step closer, holding your breath. The wind, the earthquake, the fire, those were signs, yes, but not speech. The voice came quiet. Because real truth often does. A theological mystery hangs here. Why didn't God speak through the storm as he had with Job? Why the whisper now? Some scholars suggest it was tailored to Elijah's soul, worn out from battle, from fear, from running. That what Elijah needed wasn't more force, but gentleness. A God who won't crush you when you're already low. You sit near the rock where Elijah now kneels, face buried in cloth, and you begin to understand something profound. The louder your world, the quieter God may speak. Not to punish, but to invite, to slow your steps, to draw you close enough that you can feel breath, not just hear words. You close your eyes, and suddenly you feel that whisper too, not in your ears, but under your ribs, like a thread pulling everything inside you into alignment, like peace being stitched into the places where fear used to live. You remember the fire on Mount Carmel, the shouts, the spectacle, but now, this feels truer, because the God who can part seas and call down fire can also sit beside you and speak so quietly that the world has to hush just to notice. You open your eyes. Elijah has stood up now. Not refreshed, but steadied. He's still weary. But his eyes are clear again. The silence has touched something deeper than rest. It has repaired him. He turns, begins to descend the mountain. You follow slowly, each footstep on stone like a heartbeat. And here's a lesser-known thread. Some believe that this mountain Horeb is the same place where Moses saw the burning bush. That centuries apart, two men heard God in different ways, but in the same sacred silence. You pause halfway down the slope. Turn back once more toward the summit. The rocks still glisten from fire. The dust still shifts from quake. But it's the whisper you'll carry. The wind may blow. The fire may come. But the still small voice, that's the one that changes you. You descend the mountain in silence, carrying that whisper like a secret folded into your soul. The rocks give way to soil again, and the wind becomes softer, more companion than force. Ahead, the land flattens, simpler now, humble. You walk past homes carved from clay and stone, past shadows moving behind linen curtains, until you arrive at a doorstep where grief lives in quiet obedience. She's there, the widow. Her hands are worn, her eyes dry, her oil nearly gone. She isn't crying. She's resigned but not bitter, just still. You watch from a distance as she gathers sticks. Two, only two. She plans to make one last meal for her son before surrendering to the hunger she's learned not to fight. This isn't defiance, it's dignity. The kind that still sets the table, even when you have nothing to put on it. Then Elijah arrives, dust on his cloak, still tired from the mountain. He asks for water. She brings it without question. He asks for bread. She pauses. This request cuts deeper because he's asking for something she cannot give without giving it all. But here lies the miracle. She does. She makes the bread, one small cake, all she has. And here's the holy tension. Nothing changes at first. There is no thunder, no swelling music, just the flicker of a small flame beneath the pot. You step closer, watching. And the oil doesn't run out. Not in a rush. Not as a flood. Just enough. Each day new oil. Each morning new flour. Not more than needed, but never less. The jar doesn't overflow, it endures. Some ancient commentaries note that the oil only appeared when it was needed, that if the widow tried to hoard it, it would stop. It came through trust, not storage. Through faith, not formula. You kneel beside the jar, press your fingers to the outside. It's warm. The oil inside glistens faintly, calm and golden. It carries no scent of extravagance, just quiet provision. This is not a miracle for crowds. This is for the faithful few who wake up to an empty shelf and trust anyway. The widow sings softly, now rocking her son. A song with no chorus, just notes shaped by hope too fragile to name. She stirs another batch of dough without looking at the jar. She's no longer afraid. You wonder how many of your own prayers were answered not with abundance, but with enough strength. Enough peace. Enough presence to get through the day. You sit by the fire, watch the flame flicker beneath the pot. There's something holy in this rhythm, a theology not of excess but of sufficiency. You begin to understand that God's love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the persistence of supply. And here's a lesser-known beauty: this same widow later will see her son fall ill. Will see him stop breathing. And Elijah, the same prophet who lived on her bread, will cry out on her behalf. He will lie over the boy, pray, breathe, and the boy will live again. This isn't just provision now. It's resurrection. From the same home, from the same heart. You rise from your place beside the fire and look at the jar once more. Still not full, but still not empty. And you realize you've been measuring miracles by volume. But maybe the real miracle is that it hasn't run out, that it never does. The widow smiles now, not because she knows how it works, but because she no longer questions if it will. You walk to the doorway. The air outside is cool again. You breathe deep, and the voice you heard on the mountain returns not as a word, but as a feeling. I am the oil in your jar. I am the breath between your fears. You step into the fading sunlight and carry that oil with you. Unseen, unstoppable. Enough. The road bends eastward, now sloping toward the sea, though you never quite reach it. The wind smells of salt, but the air is heavy, weighted not with moisture, but with mystery. You pass no homes, no trees, just open land, bare and vast. And then suddenly there is darkness. But not from clouds, not from nightfall. This darkness comes from within, from below. The ground seems to shudder beneath your feet, and a deep primal echo hums through the earth like an old slow drum beat. You look down. You are no longer walking on land. You are sinking. You blink and you are in the deep. Water presses from all sides, cold, heavy, pulsing like a heart that beats too slowly. And in the center of it, a man curls into himself, suspended in shadow. Jonah. Still, silent. Held not by ropes or chains, but by the belly of something vast. A fish, a sea monster, a womb of consequence and mercy. This is not punishment. This is preservation. You drift beside him in the dark. Jonah is not speaking, not yet. His hands rest against his chest. His eyes are open, but unseeing, fixed on the swirl of half-light that filters down from above. And then with no warning, he breathes in. The water does not drown him. And with that breath, a prayer begins, not loud, not confident, but honest. You listen as the words rise. Out of the belly of Sheol I cried. His voice breaks like waves on stone. This is not the polished confession of a man in temple robes. This is the raw, belly-born cry of someone who has run from God and landed not in death, but in a dark mercy. Some theologians believe Jonah's prayer in the fish is structured like a psalm carefully arranged. Others argue it was spontaneous, desperate. But either way, it reveals a truth that echoes through your chest. Sometimes we don't find clarity until we stop running, even if it takes being swallowed whole to do it. Jonah's words continue. They rise like bubbles to the surface, lament, praise, remorse, hope, all swirling together like currents in the deep. And here's the quiet miracle: God hears it. Not in a temple, not on dry land, but here, in this buried place. You sit with that, because maybe you too have known the feeling of being swallowed. By grief, by shame, by silence. And yet God listens just as closely from here. You look at Jonah. His lips move with one final line. Salvation belongs to the Lord. And that's when it happens. A shift. The great fish turns. Pressure changes. The deep begins to rise. You are pulled upward, not quickly, but with the slow inevitability of mercy coming to the surface. Then light. Blinding. Foam. Air. Jonah is vomited onto the shore, gasping, drenched, reborn. You blink. He's on his knees in the sand, coughing salt, clutching the ground as if it might disappear again. But it won't, because something inside him has changed. He is still afraid, still reluctant, but no longer running. And you sit beside him, watching the tide roll in. It kisses his feet. The fish is gone, but the memory stays. Here's a lesser-known thread in ancient Christian tradition. Jonah's 3 days in the deep were seen as a foreshadowing of Christ in the tomb. Both emerged after silence. Both carried a message of life for others. You look at the shoreline now, stretching endlessly in both directions. Jonah will still resist, still argue, still wrestle, but now he knows the truth. Even the deepest place cannot hide you from God. And you rise. Let the salt air fill your lungs. And somewhere inside you whisper, I will not fear the deep if you are in it. The waves recede, the sky clears, and your spirit breathes again. The waves fall behind you like closing hands, and the shore dissolves into dust beneath your feet once more. You walk inland now through silence so vast it almost feels like song. Each step draws you closer to something unseen, yet deeply familiar. Then you feel it, a presence before a person. A hum in the air like glass about to resonate. You pass through the gate of a city not named here, not remembered on maps, but woven into eternity by what is about to unfold. Inside, in a quiet upper room, an old man sleeps. His beard is silver, his robes folded neatly beside his mat. He is not afraid, but he is burdened. Years of exile, of prophecy, of standing alone in foreign courts have carved lines across his brow like words etched into ancient stone. It is Daniel, and though his eyes are closed, his spirit is awake. You pause near the window, looking out into the velvet night. The stars here feel different, closer, as if listening. You glance upward, and just above the horizon something shifts. Not a star, not a dream, an angel. Descending, not in fire, not in trumpets, but in delayed urgency. You feel it in the air, the weight of a message slowed by unseen forces. The angel stands at Daniel's side before Daniel even stirs. And then gently the angel places a hand near Daniel's shoulder. O man greatly loved. Daniel opens his eyes slowly, not startled, but softened. He has seen many things, lions, visions, kings rise and fall. But this is a visitation of kindness. You move closer. The air between them glows faintly, like the space between a breath and a word. The angel speaks low but clear. From the moment you set your heart to understand and humbled yourself before God, your words were heard. Daniel sits up slowly, his bones heavy with years, but his spirit lifted. The angel continues. I came in response, but I was delayed. You listen wide-eyed to the mystery behind the veil. The angel speaks of a spiritual battle of resistance, of being withheld for 21 days by a prince of Persia. And that's when you realize your prayers are never alone. They echo in halls unseen. They trigger movement in realms you cannot map. Here's a beautiful tension scholars often wrestle with. How do we understand prayer's delay in the face of divine omnipotence? If God is all-powerful, why the pause? The answer whispered here is this. Sometimes love waits for a door to open. Not because it's weak, but because it is precise. Daniel nods, his lips trembling. He doesn't demand answers. He receives presence. The angel speaks of what is to come, of wars and kings and kingdoms, but for this moment, it's not prophecy that matters. It's companionship. You sit near the edge of the room. The floor is cool, and you remember your own waiting seasons, the unanswered prayers, the delayed relief. You wonder now what angels were already on the way, what wars were fought in silence while you questioned the stillness. Daniel leans forward, arms on knees. The angel touches him again, not with lightning, not with command, but with comfort. Peace be with you, be strong. And Daniel breathes deep, and is. There's a lesser-known thread from the ancient Aramaic translations. Some say the angel's greeting, greatly loved, can also mean precious. As if heaven looks upon Daniel not just with approval, but with tenderness. You feel that now pressing into your own chest. You are not forgotten. You are not abandoned. You are not ignored. Some answers ride on wind, some on fire, others on the slow path of faithful delay. And here, tonight, in this upper room, the answer arrives in a whisper. From the moment you set your heart, you rise touched by that echo. The angel has vanished now. Daniel is praying again, lips moving in rhythm with eternity. You step out into the starlight. And above you, perhaps another angel rides the wind, coming for someone else who almost gave up. You smile softly and keep walking, because the silence has never been empty. It has always been occupied. The stars shift slowly above as you move forward, their glow softening with each step, as if dimming themselves for what comes next. The path grows narrower now, the world quieter, not heavy, but hushed. A new kind of anticipation presses gently into the air like the moment before dawn. You walk through a village where every wall seems to hold its breath. Olive branches brush against stone homes, lamps flicker faintly behind linen curtains. The air smells of earth and oil, and then you see her, a girl, sitting quietly weaving. Mary, she is younger than you imagined, not fragile, but still the kind of stillness that makes the divine feel welcome. She is not glowing, not marked by obvious splendor, but by something deeper, readiness. She hums softly as she works, unaware of the ripple about to move through all creation. And then the light changes. It doesn't blind, it illuminates. A shift in presence, a sacred breeze, a quiet brilliance that settles into the room like gold dust that refuses to fall. You turn slowly. The angel is already there. Gabriel, not with wings unfurled, not with thunder in his step, just standing peaceful present as if he's been here forever and only now revealed himself. Mary stops weaving. Her fingers freeze mid-thread. The hum fades, and the angel speaks. Greetings, favored one. The Lord is with you. No command, no rush, just greeting, as if heaven knocked gently instead of forcing the door. Mary doesn't scream. She doesn't run. But her brow furrows. What kind of greeting is this? And that's the moment where everything trembles, not in fear, but in sacred tension, because she listens. The angel continues. You will conceive and bear a son, name him Jesus. He speaks of thrones, of forever kingdoms. But Mary doesn't ask about power. She asks something simpler. How? Not in disbelief, in wonder. And Gabriel answers with mystery wrapped in softness. The Holy Spirit will come upon you. The power of the Most High will overshadow you. You glance at Mary, and in her face you see it all: fear, awe, the edge of impossibility, but also something stronger. Yes, she speaks it with no witnesses, no crowds, just her voice in the dim room. Let it be to me according to your word. You sit with that, because all of heaven held its breath for this moment. And she didn't rise to shout. She simply opened herself like soil waiting for rain. This is the quiet miracle. Not that God chose Mary, but that Mary chose God back. A theological insight floats to the surface. Mary is often called the new Eve. Where Eve questioned the word and turned away, Mary questioned the word and turned toward it. She doesn't erase fear, she steps forward with it. And this moment begins everything. Salvation tucked into a womb, God made small enough to grow. You look at her again. Her hand rests lightly on her belly now, not because she feels anything yet, but because she knows. Faith is already knitting together what the world will not understand for years. Here's a lesser-known tradition. Some ancient Christian mystics believed the moment of the incarnation, the joining of divine and human, was so quiet. Even the angels paused to watch it unfold, stunned by God's choice to enter through flesh and trust. And yet it happened in a room smaller than your living space, to a girl no one expected. Through a whisper instead of a roar, Mary begins to sing now. Not loudly, not with instruments, just her voice. A quiet hymn. My soul magnifies the Lord. You close your eyes, and the music carries you. Through walls, through time, through centuries of seekers waiting for someone to say yes. You exhale, not because the mystery is solved, but because you've been invited into it. The miracle is already moving, and now so are you. The song of Mary fades like mist at sunrise, and the air grows thick with transition. You walk through the narrow alleys of Nazareth stone beneath your feet, night gathering at the edges of rooftops. The sky above holds a silence that feels deliberate, pregnant even. Inside one of these modest homes, someone else stirs. Not a prophet, not a king, just a man trying to sleep. It's Joseph, carpenter, betrothed, honest, wounded. He lies on a simple mat, hands crossed over his chest, brows knit with the strain of decision. He's been thinking too long, too hard. Mary's news has unraveled him, and yet he hasn't broken, not outwardly. But his dreams are about to carry a weight even his waking hours couldn't hold. You sit nearby. There's a stillness here, sacred. Sleep wraps around Joseph like a thin blanket, and the world begins to shift. And then in that hush between breath and dream, a voice. But not from the room, from the depths. An angel appears, not in fire, not in overwhelming radiance, but in clarity. Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid. And there it is again, the pattern. God speaks in sleep, in silence, in the deepest, most vulnerable moments when defenses fall and souls open. The angel explains the child Mary carries is holy, of the Spirit. A name has already been chosen, Jesus. Joseph doesn't speak in the dream, but his heart responds. And when he wakes, there's no question, no debate. He rises quietly and believes. This is the miracle, not just that God spoke, but that Joseph obeyed without a sound. You walk with him the next morning. The town stares, the whispers begin, but Joseph says nothing. He doesn't defend Mary. He doesn't announce divine dreams. He simply walks beside her, stays, builds, protects. And here lies the deeper miracle. God didn't choose Joseph to preach. He chose him to guard, not with weapons, but with presence, with obedience in the dark. There's a lesser-known thread in apocryphal tradition that Joseph had dreams more than once, not just to accept Mary, but to flee to Egypt, to return to settle in Nazareth. His guidance came not in daylight, but in rest. And that too becomes a lesson. What if your next step won't be revealed through striving, but through stillness? You look at Joseph now bent over his workbench. Sawdust clings to his sleeves. The tools are worn-handled with the reverence of one who understands that small things matter. He builds chairs, cribs, door frames, not with divine light, but with quiet faithfulness. And in one corner of the home, Mary folds cloth. The child stirs within her, still unseen, still forming, and yet heaven has already rearranged itself around this house. You step into the doorway as the sun filters through the wooden beams. A bird sings outside. A dog barks 2 houses down, and everything feels ordinary. But you know better. This silence is not emptiness, it's protection. It's the kind of quiet God uses to form eternity. A theological insight flickers in your thoughts Joseph never speaks in the Gospels, not once. And yet his life speaks volumes. His silence is not weakness, it's a kind of strength that trusts rather than explains. You glance at the mat where he once dreamed, still in the corner, still sacred, because from it came the courage to raise a savior. You close your eyes for a moment and breathe. You ask quietly in your own heart, what might God be shaping in my sleep? And as the question echoes, you feel something new, peace, not from answers, but from trust in what you cannot yet see. The child is not born. The road to Bethlehem still awaits. But for now, obedience is enough. Faithfulness is building the cradle, and the miracle continues. While the world sleeps, the light changes again. You walk now beneath a sky that doesn't move utterly still like a painting fixed in time. No breeze, no shifting clouds, just silence. And there in that firmament of quiet hangs a star, not flickering, not wandering, just waiting. It glows with a steady pull, and though it hangs above Bethlehem, the world doesn't look up. Not yet, but someone does. Far to the east in lands of scrolls and sand men of wisdom Magi are watching. They don't know Hebrew prophecy, they aren't part of the covenant, but they see what others miss. Because they know how to watch the still things. You find yourself in their presence now, not kings, but scholars. Not fortune tellers, but seekers. Men with open eyes and ancient maps whispering across candlelight about a star that doesn't behave like the others. One gestures, another nods. They pack. Not quickly, not carelessly. They prepare gifts, not toys, not trinkets, but treasures that say we know this moment matters. And here's the miracle: they follow a star that doesn't move. It doesn't lead by traveling across the sky. It leads by staying still, asking them to move toward it. You begin to feel the pull yourself, not physical, but spiritual. Like something is calling you without sound. So you walk with them, across sand, across miles, across questions. The journey is long, the road unclear, but the star remains, anchored above something that hasn't happened yet. And then finally Bethlehem. Not Jerusalem, not Rome, not a palace. Just a quiet hill town. A place too small to be proud of. You arrive with the Magi just as night settles again. The star lowers, not in height, but in focus. It hovers over a single house, and they know. You step inside, not into splendor, not into glow, but into something softer. Mary holds the child, now Jesus days or months old. He does not shine. He does not hover. He sleeps like all babies sleep, warm against her chest, breath barely audible. And the Magi fall to their knees, not because they saw signs in the sky, but because they found peace in the stillness. They offer gold, frankincense, myrrh, and you realize something startling. The King of Kings is not surrounded by trumpets. He is wrapped in rags. The Magi say nothing, their eyes say everything. This is no ordinary child. But the quiet confirms it more than any voice ever could. You kneel beside them. The room is warm, lamplight glows on mud brick walls. Joseph is seated in the corner, silent as always, watchful. And Mary hums again, barely like wind through long grass. Here's a lesser-known thread: the star may not have disappeared after the visit. Some ancient Christian texts suggest it stayed above the house for a time, visible only to those still looking. And that's the secret. God doesn't always guide by motion. Sometimes he guides by anchoring peace in a single place and inviting us to come closer. The child stirs now, his eyes open, dark, wide, a gaze that looks not at you but into you. And you feel it more than any sermon, more than any thunder. You feel the truth of it. God came near, not loud, not high, but low, still, reachable. You rise as the Magi bow their heads in prayer. They'll leave soon. Their visit will be brief. But the wonder, that stays. Because the greatest miracle in this moment wasn't that they found him, it's that he let himself be found. You step outside again. The star still lingers, not pulling you now, but blessing you, a promise written in light. And you walk onward whispering, I will follow stillness, even when nothing moves. The glow of the star fades behind you, not as if extinguished, but as if its purpose has been fulfilled for now. The road narrows once again, pressing between ridges of dry earth and fields that breathe quiet under the moon. You step into a different silence now, a chosen silence. The kind that isn't the absence of sound, but the deliberate clearing of space, a wilderness, harsh, empty, and holy. You don't see him right away. But you know who waits here? Jesus. Alone. Dust clings to his sandals. The folds of his robe stir faintly in the desert wind. He has been here 40 days, not hiding, not escaping, preparing. He sits on a stone that radiates the sun's memory even after nightfall. His eyes are open, watching the shadows move, watching himself perhaps. You sit on a ridge above and watch with him. The wild stretches far in every direction, bare hills, dry rivers, thorned bushes, twisting like questions never answered. And he is still, so very still. This is where the Spirit led him. Not to a pulpit, not to a crowd, but to a place where everything else must fall away. And here's the strange and sacred miracle God made flesh chose 40 days of nothing. No comfort, no crowd, no food, just presence. A theological mystery whispers to the edge of your mind. Why would divinity need preparation? Why would Jesus the Word, the light, the sun, walk into silence? Because even light honors the discipline of stillness. Even heaven humbles itself to the rhythm of patience. He doesn't speak aloud, but you hear him anyway. Every breath he takes is prayer. Every blink a meditation. And then, the tempter arrives. Not loud, not grotesque, just clever. A voice low and sharp like a shadow trying to put on light. If you are the Son of God, the voice offers shortcuts. Turn stones to bread. Jump and let angels catch you. Claim kingdoms without crosses. But Jesus, he doesn't debate. He answers with scripture, with truth born in silence. Not shouted, spoken, softly, firmly. You begin to understand. The wilderness wasn't for testing power. It was for revealing restraint, for showing that holiness isn't loud victory, it's quiet resistance. A lesser-known insight, the desert wasn't just barren physically. It mirrored the emptiness of Eden after the fall. But here, in this new wilderness, Jesus chooses trust where Adam chose temptation. And so redemption begins in stillness. You move a little closer. He's seated again, now alone. The enemy has left. The silence deepens. But this silence is different, peaceful. He doesn't smile, but his face is at peace. His body is tired, but his spirit is untouched. And now angels. They come not with swords or trumpets, but with food, with presence, with care. They minister to him quietly, as if heaven is saying you didn't need to prove anything. You watch them bring him bread, water, gentle hands brushing dust from his shoulders. He receives it with grace, not triumph, but gratitude. You wonder now, how often do you resist the silence thinking nothing is happening when in fact it's preparing everything? Jesus rises at last. Not in glory, in readiness. He begins to walk not fast, not with urgency, but with intent. And you follow, because now you understand the wilderness wasn't a detour. It was a doorway, and through it steps not just a man, but a mission, softened by hunger, strengthened by stillness. The dust of the wilderness still clings to his robe as he steps into the villages, but he carries no fanfare, no scrolls, no proclamations, just a quiet knowing. And you follow through narrow streets beneath rustling palms, past eyes that glance and then linger. But not all who seek him come openly. Today you stand in the crowd, pressed among others' voices, murmuring about power, about healing. And there, moving through the sea of bodies, is a woman. She is bent slightly, her hand trembling as it touches the edge of her shawl. Her eyes are focused on him, not his face, just his robe. You feel her desperation. Not loud, not dramatic. It lives in her silence. In the 12 years she's carried illness, shame, exile. The kind of suffering that makes you disappear long before you die. She doesn't speak. She doesn't ask. She just reaches. Her hand slips between shoulders and elbows, and fingers brush cloth. That's it. Just a touch. And heaven responds. Jesus stops. Immediately. He turns not with anger, not with confusion, but with curiosity wrapped in divine attention. Who touched me? The crowd laughs nervously. They all have, but he knows. He felt power go out. And the woman, terrified now, kneels, shaking, ready for rebuke, but he does not scold. He listens. She tells him everything. and he listens like she's the only voice on earth. And then he says, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." You breathe out, suddenly realizing you'd held your breath through the whole exchange. Because this was no public miracle. This was private restoration made visible. A hidden act of faith that stopped divinity in its tracks. Here's a lesser-known insight. Many scholars believe the woman didn't just suffer physically, but spiritually. Under law, she was ceremonially unclean, untouchable, cast aside. But Jesus allows himself to be touched. He doesn't become unclean, she becomes whole. And he doesn't just heal her body, he restores her identity. He calls her daughter, not stranger, not patient, not the bleeding woman, daughter. And that word alone is enough to rewrite her story. You sit on a step as the crowd disperses, watching her walk away lighter now. Her shoulders lifted, her eyes shimmering not with tears of desperation, but of awe. And you wonder, how often have you hesitated to reach? How often have you thought faith had to be loud or visible or complete? When maybe faith is just a touch. Maybe your healing has already begun, not with a dramatic turnaround, but with a single choice to reach even quietly. You stand again. Jesus is walking on. But now he's different to you. Not because he changed, but because you've seen how deeply he notices. Even when the world crowds him, even when everyone wants something, he feels the silent grasp, the trembling hope, the whispered prayer under the breath. And he stops, turns, and says, "Peace." You walk forward now more slowly. Your hand brushes your own robe as if remembering, and inside something you hadn't felt for a while returns. You are not forgotten. Even your quietest acts of faith are enough to move heaven. The crowd thins behind you, dissolving into the everyday noise of the village, but something has shifted in your steps. You move now not out of curiosity, but out of closeness. Something sacred walks beside you, though no shadow tells its name. The road winds along a wide stretch of water Galilee. Waves lap gently against the shore, silver under the fading light. Boats rock in slow rhythm, nets hang empty, and the sky hums with the promise of night. You're not alone on this shoreline. There in a simple boat he sleeps. Jesus. His head rests on a cushion in the stern, breath steady. The wind brushes over his face like a mother's hand soothing a child. His cloak rises and falls in rhythm with the sea, and above the clouds begin to gather. Not in panic, just in presence. The air thickens, the lake darkens, the wind shifts from whisper to warning. And yet he sleeps. You climb into the boat with the others. Familiar faces, worn hands. Fishermen who've faced storms before, but tonight the stillness breaks. A sudden gust, a sharp wave, then another. The boat pitches, water crashes over the sides, wood groans, and still he sleeps. You watch the others begin to panic. They bail water, shout commands, eyes wide with the knowledge of how easily this lake can swallow boats whole. But he remains at peace. Until a desperate cry slices through the storm. "Teacher, don't you care that we're drowning?" It echoes in your chest because you've prayed it too, haven't you? Don't you see, don't you care? And then he rises, not slowly, not dramatically, just awake. He stands soaked in spray hair, swept back by the wind that dares challenge him. And he speaks, not to the disciples, not to the panic, but to the storm itself. "Peace, be still." And the wind obeys, the waves settle, the clouds unravel. Silence falls again, heavier than before, thicker because now it is filled with awe. Here lies the miracle he calms without effort, and then asks a question that echoes more deeply than the thunder ever did. Why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith? Not as rebuke, but as invitation. You realize something profound. He wasn't just calming the sea. He was revealing the storm inside them, and maybe inside you, because the waters outside are always moving. But it's the waves within that unsettle your nights. Here's a lesser-known observation. Some scholars make the phrase "peace be still" in Greek can be rendered more closely to be muzzled, as if speaking not just to weather, but to the chaos behind it. The spiritual storm that hides within fear. You sit now at the bow of the boat, watching the lake turn smooth as glass. The moon emerges, casting light on water that moments ago threatened to consume you. And you think, he slept through the storm not because he didn't care, but because he knew the outcome, knew you were already held. You touch the edge of the boat, fingers brushing the wood, still damp, still marked, but no longer in danger. You look at him. Jesus sits again, calm as before, no anger, just knowing. He meets your gaze, and in his eyes you see it. Your panic does not scare him. Your desperation doesn't repel him. It draws him closer. You close your eyes, and in the space behind your lids, you feel the boat again. Still, rocking gently, not to fear, but to sleep. Because now you know you're allowed to rest in the same storm he's already conquered. The water glistens in your memory as you step once more onto dry land, the echo of his voice. Peace be still softening something in your chest. But now your path bends away from the lake into crowded alleys and cobbled roads. The city wakes slowly under the weight of the sun, and with it stirs a man who hasn't seen it in years. Not because he was gone, but because he was blind. You see him now, sitting near the edge of a temple courtyard, his eyes cloudy, unblinking, not from sleep, but from a lifetime of shadow. His hands rest in his lap, palms turned upward, not demanding, just waiting. Then he appears, Jesus. No announcement, no procession, just presence. He walks toward the man, and others follow, some curious, some skeptical. One leans in and asks, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? The question slices through the morning like a chill. It's sharp, heavy with judgment disguised as theology. But Jesus doesn't answer with blame. He answers with purpose. Neither I, but that the works of God might be displayed in him. And that's the shift, from cause to calling. He kneels before the blind man. No ritual, no grand gesture, just a pause. Then he spits gently onto the dirt, creating mud. The act is strange, unexpected. You watch as he mixes dust and saliva, earth and word, and presses it gently onto the man's eyelids. No apology, no explanation, just an instruction. Go wash in the pool of Siloam, and the man without sight, without question, goes. You follow. The walk is slow. Each step is faith wrapped in uncertainty. He stumbles once. A child takes his hand. Another directs him quietly around a cart. And then the water. He kneels, leans forward, cups the pool, washes. And then light. Not like sunrise, like beginning. He blinks and sees. Not just shapes, not just motion, but detail, color, faces. He laughs, a little too loud, falls backward and laughs again, and the world around him bursts into focus. And the miracle. It isn't just that he sees. It's that he was willing to go blind to the water without knowing what would happen, that he obeyed a command without evidence. Some scholars suggest this healing echoes the creation of Adam, God, forming man from dust, now forming sight from mud, vision from the earth, light from the dark. You return with him to the city where his joy becomes a disturbance. Pharisees question, neighbors whisper, but the man does not waver. All I know is I was blind and now I see. He doesn't quote scripture. He doesn't overthink. He testifies with truth born from encounter. Here's a quiet theological wonder. Jesus never asks the man if he believes before healing him. The miracle comes first. The faith follows. Because sometimes sight leads belief, not the other way around. You find Jesus later in the outer courtyard watching the man from a distance. He smiles, not just because the man can see, but because he is learning how to see rightly, to see who gave him sight. You sit near a wall and close your eyes briefly, and in that brief darkness you feel the mud on your own lids, the water washing it away, the light returning. And when you open your eyes again, the world feels new, because you remember, God does not need your certainty, only your willingness to walk toward the water. The city still murmurs in the distance, but you walk away from the noise, drawn by something quieter. The road narrows, framed by olive trees and stone walls. In the shade of one such wall, a house stands, simple, warm, familiar. You step inside. It smells of bread, of herbs, of lived-in grace. There, seated on the floor beside a low table, is a woman. Her name is Mary, not his mother, the other Mary, sister of Martha, sister of Lazarus. She isn't working. She isn't preparing. She's listening. Jesus sits not far from her, cross-legged, relaxed, his eyes soft with welcome, his voice low, steady, like someone not just teaching but unveiling something eternal in the rhythm of ordinary words. And Mary, she is still, utterly, completely still. Her eyes do not wander, her hands do not fidget. She leans in not toward explanation but toward presence. Then from the kitchen noise, a dish clinks, bread drops, a voice rises. Martha. She enters, apron damp with effort, eyes bright with the heat of busyness. Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her to help me. The room tightens, and you brace for correction. But Jesus, calm and kind, says, Martha, Martha, and the repetition softens the edge. You are anxious and troubled about many things, but only one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the better part, and it will not be taken from her. You feel it deep in your ribs, because you are Martha too. You rush. You serve. You calculate worth by activity, but here he tells you to sit, to listen, to choose presence over performance. A lesser-known nuance in ancient homes, women were not expected to sit at the feet of a rabbi. That was a place of a disciple. But here Mary defies custom, not out of rebellion, out of love. And Jesus affirms her, not just her choice, but her place. She belongs there. So do you. You sit beside her now, feeling the quiet wisdom pouring out of Christ, not as doctrine, but as water for thirsty souls. He speaks of the kingdom, of peace, of lilies and sparrows, but mostly he radiates something Mary already understands, that the most divine revelations often come when we stop trying to impress him and just be with him. You lean against the wall, and the hush feels sacred. You notice Martha again, no longer frantic. She's still holding a cloth, but she's standing quieter now, watching. Maybe listening too. She wasn't wrong to serve, but she almost missed the invitation. And that's the miracle, that the Lord of Heaven sits in a small house on a dusty floor and gives his full attention to a woman the world would ignore. There's a beautiful mystery buried here. He says Mary has chosen the better part. The Greek word used can also mean portion, as in food, inheritance, blessing. She has chosen to feast on him, and it will not be taken away. You close your eyes, resting your back against the cool stone. You ask nothing. You say nothing, you just listen. Because tonight you are Mary too. And the voice that formed stars is speaking again, not through thunder, but through quiet conversation over bread. And as he speaks, something inside you settles. Not because all your tasks are done, but because you've chosen, at least for now, to do the one thing necessary, to be still, to receive, to listen. You rise quietly from Mary's side, her stillness folded neatly inside your chest, like a piece of sacred cloth. The path outside leads back into the olive groves, and the leaves rustle softly, whispers from the past, brushing the edge of the now. The night has deepened, and this time it is a garden that waits. You pass through its stone archway. Gethsemane. The earth here is uneven, the air thick with dew and the scent of pressed olives. You hear nothing at first, just the slow rustle of trees and the distant chirp of a bird, unsure whether to sleep or sing. Then footsteps. Not running, dragging. Jesus. He walks a few paces ahead, robe clinging to him with sweat hair damp from a storm that hasn't fallen yet. The disciples follow, groggy, quiet, unsure. He leaves them near the gate. Stay here and watch with me. But they won't. Not for long. He moves deeper into the garden. You go with him. The moonlight finds him kneeling near a flat stone, fingers digging into the soil. And then the silence breaks, not with speech, but with agony. He groans, not loud, but heavy, like the weight of the world has bent something inside him. And it has. You watch as his body curls toward the earth. He whispers, his voice hoarse, trembling. Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Then silence. The pause of all eternity leaning forward. Yet not my will, but yours be done. And there it is. The stillest surrender in all of history. Not shouted, just yielded. He falls forward. Sweat becomes blood. The weight presses down deeper than anything he's carried before. And you kneel beside him. Not to comfort, but to witness. Because sometimes the greatest acts of obedience are not loud or brave. They are whispered into the dirt alone with no one watching. A lesser-known insight in ancient Jewish olive presses: the first pressing yields the finest oil, pure, gentle. The second heavier. The third, the most crushed, brings the deepest flow. And Jesus, he is in his third pressing. Crushed, but faithful. You look toward the disciples, asleep. He returns to them once, twice, 3 times, and each time they slumber. And yet he does not leave them. He returns to the stone, the Father, the silence. And this time he doesn't pray for escape. He prays for strength. An angel appears, not to take the cup away, but to strengthen him to drink it. And now the hush settles again, thicker, solemn, final. He stands. His back straightens. The trembling quiets. The surrender is complete. You walk beside him as torches flicker at the garden's edge. The footsteps of soldiers, the rustle of betrayal. And still, he does not run. He steps forward into the kiss, the chain, the judgment. Because the greatest miracle of Gethsemane was not the pain, it was the permission, given freely, lovingly, deliberately, in silence. You touch the tree nearest him, bark rough against your palm, and you whisper only this: "Thank you for staying." And in the echo, the olive trees seem to nod. The sky remains still. The stars watch in reverence. And you walk forward carrying that stillness like armor, 'cause you know now, courage whispers. And surrender, is quiet. The garden lies behind you, now shadowed and solemn, the soil still pressed with the weight of divine surrender. You follow him not through miracle, but through mockery. No cheering crowds, only torches, shackles, and silence. Then, a tomb. You stand outside it now, cold, heavy, hewn from stone, and it is sealed. There is no movement, no voice, no sign, only the dull ache of loss in the air. Inside, darkness wraps around stillness, not peace but pause. He is not speaking, he is not healing, he is not moving, he is dead. You step closer to the stone, run your hand across its face. It is cool, unyielding, immovable, or so it seems. You sit down just outside the tomb where the grass grows despite everything. The morning hasn't yet broken. The sky remains indigo, caught between grief and dawn. There's something holy about this quiet. A lesser-known truth in ancient Jewish understanding: death was not just physical, it was disconnection, absence, separation from the breath of God. And here he is, the breath himself withdrawn. But the silence isn't void. It's doing something. Inside this hush is a mystery deeper than words can hold. God has entered death, fully, willingly. You close your eyes and picture the stillness inside the tomb. Not frozen, not panicked, just perfectly placed. The miracle is not in what's happening outside. It's in what's becoming within. Because even here, where all seems finished, God is at work. Not loudly, not visibly, but eternally. Some theologians call this the harrowing of hell, a moment where Christ, though wrapped in death, descended into its depths and whispered freedom into places chained too long. It isn't recorded with noise, no shouts, no grand entrances, just God carrying light into places that had never seen it. And you sitting outside the sealed stone, you are waiting, like Mary, like the disciples, like all creation leaning toward hope without yet seeing it. You place your palm flat on the earth, and it's warm, alive beneath your hand, because life hasn't left. It's just resting. There's a strange comfort here, a holy tension. You don't know the end yet, but you believe something is unfolding. You wait, and in that waiting, a realization dawns. Even God rested in the silence of the grave. Even resurrection waited 3 days. Not because he was defeated, but because some miracles rise slow. You look toward the horizon. The sky lightens barely. Not sunrise, but the edge of it. And the tomb, still sealed, still holding, but no longer in defeat. Now it holds a promise, one that cannot be buried. You whisper softly, "Even here, you are still with me." And in that whisper, the stone beneath your feet does not move. But your soul does. It stirs. Because the hush of the tomb is not the end. It is the beginning of a breath, one that is about to fill everything. The light grows gently now, as if heaven itself is afraid to startle the world awake. The birds stir first in cautious song. The wind moves next, soft across the olive leaves, and the shadows slip back behind the hills like they know their time is short. You're still sitting near the tomb, but something has shifted. It's not loud. It's presence, and then footsteps. Soft on gravel, slow, purposeful. You turn. 2 people walk a dusty road, Cleopas and another. Their faces are downcast, their steps heavy with disappointment. They had hoped, they had followed, and now they leave Jerusalem not in celebration but in confusion. Jesus has died. And though rumors rise about an empty tomb, they walk in the opposite direction, toward Emmaus, toward distance away from dreams. You fall and step behind them. They speak in half-thoughts, fragments of grief, until another joins them, a stranger. His eyes kind but unreadable, his steps match theirs. And he asks the simplest question, "What are you talking about?" They stop. Cleopas turns confused. "Are you the only one in Jerusalem who hasn't heard?" The irony slices through the dawn. Because he has heard, he has lived it. He is the reason for every whisper and rumor and shattered expectation. But he says only, "Tell me," and so they do. They pour out their confusion, their pain, their incomplete puzzle of prophecy, and he listens. Not with interruption, but with care. Then he speaks. He begins with Moses and unfolds the prophets. Piece by piece, like a seamstress repairing a torn cloth, he threads their broken understanding into a tapestry of purpose. And still they don't see him, because sometimes we are too wounded to recognize the healing standing beside us. You follow them all the way to Emmaus, the road stretching behind like a long breath finally exhaled. The sun hangs low now, golden and slow. The 2 reach their village, and just as the stranger begins to walk further, "Stay with us," they say, and he does. They gather at the table, You sit just outside watching through the window as the stranger takes bread. He blesses it. He breaks it. He gives it. And in that moment, they see, not with their eyes, with their souls. It is him, alive, present, risen. They gasp. He vanishes. But the silence he leaves behind is not empty. It is filled with knowing. The two rise, no longer slow, no longer heavy, and run back to Jerusalem. You follow again, but this time the air feels different. Lighter. Hope is no longer a rumor. It is a person. Here's a quiet insight: Jesus chose not to appear in temple courts or governor halls. He chose a road, a quiet table, a shared meal. Because he meets the broken not where they expect him, but where they need him. You stop at the side of the path as the dust lifts beneath their running feet. And you whisper something only heaven can hear. You walked beside me even when I didn't know you were there. And the air answers with the hush of peace. Because that's the miracle. You're never walking alone. The road from Emmaus curves back into Jerusalem, and you follow the dust of revelation stirred by those who have finally seen. The city has changed not outwardly, not in stone or structure, but in its atmosphere. Something has broken open, something has risen, and now you're standing before a house. Its windows shuttered, its doors locked. Inside, fear breathes heavily. The disciples are gathered not as leaders, not yet, but as survivors. They speak in low voices, wrestling with stories of sightings with half-believed hope and fresh disbelief. They don't know what to trust anymore, but he comes anyway. Through the wall, through the wood, through the locked door. No sound, no knock, just presence. He stands among them. Jesus, no longer bloodied, but not pretending the wounds are gone. He shows his hands, his side, and the room freezes. You feel it too, the moment when fear collides with love, when walls don't matter anymore. And he says, "Peace be with you." Not rebuke, not explanation. Peace, as if the very air shifts to make room for it. The disciples say nothing for a moment. Their mouths open, but their eyes say everything. He is alive. But more than that, he is gentle. And here is a quiet miracle: the resurrected Christ does not come with trumpet or sword. He comes into closed spaces, places of fear, rooms full of hiding and doubt. And he says again, "Peace." You glance around the room. Thomas isn't here, and that matters. Because the story isn't complete yet. Jesus breathes on the others. Not a symbol. A gift. Receive the Holy Spirit. Not someday. Now. You watch them exhale finally. Like people who didn't realize they'd been holding their breath for 3 days. And still the doors remain locked. But the fear, that's cracking. 1 week later, Thomas returns. And Jesus comes again. Still no knock. Still no demand. Just presence. "Put your fingers here," he says, "touch my side." And Thomas, so often labeled as doubter, responds with the first direct confession of Jesus as God in the Gospels. "My Lord and my God." You feel that sink into the floorboards, into your ribs, because sometimes the deepest belief is born in the deepest wounds. A lesser-known insight: the locked room is not just physical. It mirrors the spiritual state of the disciples, sealed off, afraid, ashamed. And Jesus doesn't demand they come out. He comes in. He meets them where they are. So what about your locked room, the place no one sees? Where fear has bolted the door and placed furniture in front of it, he comes there too, without scolding, without noise. And he says again, "Peace." You step away from the wall and walk into the center of the room. It's brighter now. The faces of the disciples are no longer drawn tight. They speak in low tones, but now with wonder, with purpose. Jesus is gone again for now, but his peace remains, and you realize no door can keep him out. No failure, no fear, not even death. You close your eyes, and from the stillness inside you hear his whisper, "I come for you in quiet, I stay through peace." You smile softly, and the room becomes not a cage, but a sanctuary. The room fades behind you, not like a memory, but like a candle gently extinguished when dawn is ready. You walk once more through the streets of Jerusalem, where the scent of fig and dust lingers in the morning air. The city breathes again, not yet fully awake, but no longer held in mourning. The disciples have changed, and now you stand with them on a hillside just beyond the city. It's quiet here. Birdsong in the distance, wind through olive branches, the kind of quiet that makes your spirit lean forward, as if something is about to be spoken that will never be repeated. And there he stands. Jesus, risen, radiant, but not in a way that blinds. He wears no crown of gold, no robe of kingship, just simplicity, power restrained in gentleness. You notice the disciples gathered close, but not crowding. Some still dare not look him directly in the eyes. Others can't stop. Their hearts beat fast, but their feet stay rooted. You're near enough to hear their breath, and his. He opens his hands and speaks. All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. He pauses, not for drama, for connection. Then, go therefore and make disciples of all nations. You feel the earth shift slightly beneath your feet. Not because it quakes, because it listens. This is not just instruction. It's invitation. To carry the quiet glory of what they've seen into a world still deaf with noise. To become echoes of peace-living gospels shaped by memory and mystery. And then, he lifts his hands, not to command, to bless. A gesture so simple yet filled with something eternal. And as he blesses, he begins to rise. Not rushed, not pulled, just lifted. You don't feel wind. You don't hear sound. You only see the space widening between his feet and the soil, and the sky receiving him like a mother drawing her child home. Higher, brighter, gone. You all stand there, silent, still, heads tilted toward a blue too vast to follow. And then, two men in white appear. Why do you stand looking into heaven? It's not a scolding, it's a nudge, as if to say, what he began in stillness now continues in you. You lower your gaze, and the world has not changed, but you have. Here's a sacred insight: the final act of Jesus on earth was a blessing, not a miracle, not a judgment, but a gentle departure spoken through grace. And what he left was not an empire, not an army, but a people who had learned to trust him through silence, through sleep, through storms, through surrender. You walk down the hillside with the others. No one speaks, no one needs to. Because when heaven rises that quietly, it doesn't leave your ears ringing. It leaves your heart burning. You touch your chest and feel it there, not fire, but peace, and his final promise still echoing. I am with you always into the end of the age. You whisper it once to yourself, just to hear how it sounds in your voice. Always. And the silence agrees. The hill fades behind you, but not its memory. You walk now through a world unchanged in its shape, but utterly altered in its meaning. Every tree, every breeze, every step seems to carry something new, even though nothing looks different. He is gone, but not gone. You are not alone. The others have returned to the city, gathered once more in the upper room, not in fear now, but in expectation. A quiet expectation. The kind that doesn't rush, doesn't force. The kind that waits because it knows something is coming. And so you wait with them. The room is dim, the doors are closed, but hearts open, fully. You sit near the window watching the early morning light drift across the floor. Feet shuffle. Prayers rise, sometimes whispered, sometimes wept. No one knows the hour, only the promise. And then it comes, not with wind. At first, but with stillness collapsing inward like the room inhales. Then a sound from above. Not thunder, not shouting, but rushing, a wind that has been patient for centuries. It sweeps through not to destroy but to fill. Every corner, every heart. You feel it enter your lungs not like oxygen but like knowing. Like something familiar finally arriving where it has always belonged. And then fire, but not the burning kind. This fire rests, divides, hovers, a flame above each one. They do not scream, they do not fall. They speak. Language is never studied, words never taught, but the meaning, clear. God is no longer with them. He is in them, and the world will never recover. You walk outside now, following the sound. The crowd has gathered, confused, amazed. How are they speaking my language, one asks. What does this mean, another whispers. You smile, because, this is not just a new chapter. It's a new creation. The same spirit that hovered over the waters now hovers in human breath, in language, in flesh. Here's a quieter miracle often missed. Pentecost didn't erase differences. It didn't flatten culture. It honored them. Every tongue heard, every soul reached. Not through conformity, but through connection. You sit beside a fountain as the sound rolls on. Peter begins to speak. Not the Peter who once sank in the sea, but the one now filled. And you realize something sacred. Jesus didn't leave so we would chase his absence. He left so we could carry his presence. You look at your hands. They do not glow. They do not shake, but they carry something now. The Spirit, gentle, fire-shaped. God has come to stay. You close your eyes, and the wind settles. And the flame in your chest does not flicker out. It deepens, like a root reaching into eternity, like a whisper that no longer needs to shout, because now you are the sanctuary. And wherever you walk, he walks in you, so now your breath slows. The stories have settled. The whispers of God, the footsteps of angels, the hush of heaven. They've all wrapped themselves around your spirit tonight, like a warm, unseen blanket. You've walked with prophets, waited beside silent jars, listened through storms, knelt in gardens, and you've learned that the greatest miracles are not always the loudest. That sometimes it's the space between the words, the breath before the answer, the tear before the promise, and now you lie still. The room around you hums gently, fan-whirring night wrapping your body in calm. You don't need to remember every detail, because something deeper has remembered you. The spirit still whispers. The light still rises even when your eyes close. Let your shoulders drop now. Unclench your jaw. Let every worry settle into God's palm, which has never once forgotten your name. Let the silence you once feared become the resting place of your soul. Tonight you sleep with the angels watching, with the spirit within you, with the Savior's words still echoing across the stars. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Rest now, child of light. The stories keep breathing while you dream. You are not alone. You never were, and never will be. End of script. Sweet dreams.